Not all games need a hub area. In most cases, a simple menu is great for getting you right into the gameplay in an organized way. Padding out the experience by making you walk around from option to option wouldn't add anything of value, doing nothing other than wasting huge amounts of time that add up the more you play the game. But when a game gets a hub area right, that's kind of a magical experience. I think those of us who grew up with games like Mario 64, Banjo Kazooie, Spyro, or even some newer games like Mario Galaxy will understand this the best. If you can successfully make a hub area part of the game itself, the immersion you experience goes through the roof, and especially as a child, your imagination is captured by the freedom of this connected world that a menu simply can't replicate. In fact, because it serves as the glue holding the entire experience together, a well-made hub will often become the most memorable part of that game. I'm not sure what I was doing or why it was so entertaining, but I know as a kid I had a blast running around Peach's castle and driving through the world of Diddy Kong Racing in a way that Mario Kart couldn't compete with. I loved Banjo Kazooie, but most of my time was spent just running around Spyro Mountain because I was too scared to go into Gruntilda's lair. But unfortunately, the art of the hub area came and went pretty fast. These were a glimpse into a future of gigantic, interconnected worlds, and now we're deep into that future. A lot of games don't have levels separated by loading screens, and so there's no need for a hub. And even Mario seems to have given up on hubs to explore in favor of straightforward world maps. So what games are keeping the dream alive and pushing hub areas into new heights in the modern day? The answer is of course A Hat in Time, one of the best games to come out in recent years, but also Splatoon. And when I say pushing hub areas to new heights, I really mean it. Splatsville is bigger than any previous Splatoon hub, not only giving us more space to walk around, but creating huge buildings that loom over us, packed with detail all the way to the top. There's a sense of so much life going on in this condensed area, but as a player you don't need to walk further to experience this, it's around you at all times. There's intricate, high-up pathways that give the feeling there's so much more to explore here than there really is, and some Inklings will even hang out in these areas. Immediately your imagination runs wild with what you'd be able to find if you could explore the whole world around you. You can catch glimpses of life on the outside, like the busy roads and train lines, and there's even an underground road that runs below the city.
I may be biased here, but I believe the underrated MVP of the hub is all the logos and designs we see all over the place. There's just so much personality and storytelling in the logos and designs alone. And some of the most fascinating designs to me are the ones on the right side of the hub. These stores are inaccessible, but are still treated as real operating shops by the developers. Every shop has a unique song when you stand next to them. Just like the shops that you can enter, play a song when you're near it. The real interesting part though, is the advertising for these shops. The screens all around the hub and in the lobby occasionally play ads for brands and maps. But they also play ads for these quote-unquote fake stores. Isn't that incredible? It establishes these shops as active, just unenterable to the players. The fact that they have logo animations at all is a great testament to how thorough the world building is. But wait, it gets better. These shops have complete brand identities. For example, this shop with the eye logo has 3 colors on their sign, and in their motion graphic, they use the exact same colors. And this shop conveys calmness by using slower animations. And this one uses the same eyesore green from the sign. It's so interesting that these brands are taken so seriously. I can go on and on about these shops, but I'll leave it at that for now.
This area is designed to make you ask questions that you'll never get the answers to. What's up with this gigantic building that's connected to the lobby tower? And what would I find just beyond this construction site? These days, I'd know exactly what to expect if I could actually clip out of bounds to explore. It is a video game after all, but even despite this, I still find myself asking those questions. Honestly, I'm pretty envious of people who are experiencing this game as a child. The amount of detail truly brings the world to life, like the AC units and clothes hanging from nearby apartments, the wires and pipes connecting the whole city, this key left in this motorbike's ignition with the little squid keychain attached, or the abundance of litter left by local Inklings. There's even an entire pile of bin bags tossed on the top of this building. You wouldn't think a detail like this would be something nice, but it really adds to the feeling of these areas being hangout spots for teenagers, which is something I think they've perfected in this game. Though I have to admit this card game area looks a little bit bland and unfinished. Some more grass would go a long way to improve the visuals. I really like the concept of what they were going for here, but the execution doesn't look quite so great.
The table turf area feels pretty empty to the rest of the place. Kind of looks like a Yakuza 0 area to me. But while we're here, did you notice that the Grisco building has a ton of their ads on it? And not just in the back, but also in the front as well. By the way, have you noticed how jank the whole setup for the Grizz and the Shoal building are? They both essentially go underground and to the left. Seems pretty off to me, especially for the Shoal, since it had a simple entrance in Splatoon 2. Also, I noticed that the TV on the Shoal building is kind of broken. Thought that was a cool touch. It really shows how imperfect and real this town is.
As the narrator says in the Splatoon 3 Direct, despite its old-fashioned appearance, the Splatlands have seen huge growth in recent years, and much like Japan, this means there's a huge contrast of large modern buildings and old traditional style ones. The hangout spot in front of the lobby is very distinct from the traditional style buildings tightly packed into nearby alleyways. You can imagine why different Inklings would hang out in these different spots for different activities, and it gives each section of the hub a unique feel. This extends to the shopping area too. In previous games, it honestly always felt like 4 random buildings slapped together, but this time they really pulled off the look of a mini shopping district with unique buildings. They're not just in a straight line anymore. Hotslantis is separated by moving it to the other side of the street, and Ammo Nights is a corner shop with Nort Couture slightly hidden away upstairs. Speaking of which, if you look closely before entering Crush Station, you can see it's actually down a flight of stairs. So the clothing store is on the ground level with the weapon store, the headgear store is higher up, and the shoe store is lower down, just like where those different types of gear are worn. And look, I love this stuff because I like fun areas to explore, even if there's not much of a point to it. But I'm not the only person playing this game, and I can fully understand if someone were to say this was all just wasting their time. But that's what's so genius about Splatoon's hubs. The detail and fun areas are there for people like me who care, but if you don't, you can simply open up the menu and skip straight to any of these at any time. It's the best of both worlds, really. Shops aren't the only unique looking buildings from the outside. The Salmon Run building is a great example of setting the mood right from the get-go, with the creaky gates that doesn't shut properly, leading you down into some kind of sketchy basement. The security camera and unchecked post box certainly doesn't make it feel any more inviting, and the Salmon Run gear, including gloves, boots, and even a frying pan left in this alleyway at the side of the building, is a great touch too. It also goes without saying this building matches the orange and green color scheme of Salmon Run as well.
I want to take a second to talk about this busy corner of the hub. It's common practice for small businesses to use these LED lights. They're very cost efficient, and oftentimes you can put whatever message you want. So the fact that they're here really is a great touch. And behind this cool little area, we have what looks to be traditional Japanese architecture, and there's small little logos of Deep Cut on it. I think it's a cool little detail to see these designs there, considering they're everywhere else during the Splatfest.
Splatoon is all about urban areas, but it's also about color. The grey of the buildings is broken up by various plants, and they seem to even have roof gardens at the top. The post box is bright red to stand out from its surroundings, and there's also a large red gate here, again very Japanese as Splatoon often is. The overhead trains also have graffiti along the side of them, and speaking of which, Splatoon 1 had a regular train station and Splatoon 2 was connected to a subway. But did you notice both games also had a monorail in the distance? In Splatoon 3, the monorail is directly over the hub area, and it also goes straight over a few stages, including Eeltail Alley and Hagglefish Market. Based on the graffiti, these are the exact same trains. Aeroplanes still fly over the hub like previous games, but considering Inklings fly around in little espresso machines now, are all of these modes of transport really necessary? Either way, they look cool though. The lobby tower, or whatever you call these things as a collective, is particularly cool in this game. The design is very sleek and modern, and I love the LED screens with the blue, yellow, and grey paint spreading across them. I don't know what this word says, but you can clearly see the word 3 written right here. Even now, I still really like Inkopolis Tower from the first game. It works as a great standout centerpiece and has a lot of personality, and the speakers vibrating outside are a great detail as well. Splatoon 2's hub area is fine, but it's honestly my least favorite. It feels like a bit of a mess to me, and this also applies to the Decker Tower. It doesn't look bad, but my eyes don't really know where to focus. There's just too much random stuff going on. There's so many visually stimulating things in Inkopolis Square that nothing manages to stand out. In Splatoon 3, this is greatly improved. I love this interior area, and these speakers are back despite being missing in Splatoon 2. Also, check out this nearby map. Again, I love the contrast of this modern hangout spots near the lobby with its LED screens, compared to the more old-fashioned alleyways packed with traditional shop signs. Having the lobby tower separated from the shopping area by stairs makes it feel feel far grander and more important, and pushes the sense of this being an entire city with different levels of elevation. By comparison, the old hub areas feel very flat. They have some changes in elevation, but the lobby tower is always just sitting on the ground there with everything else. It all blends together instead of feeling like distinct areas. Note the composition of the scene you're given as soon as the game starts. If you know what you're doing, you're likely to immediately start moving and completely ignore this, but it's been very precisely set up to put an emphasis on the stairs leading you to the lobby, or taking up less space on the screen, you also have ammonites. At this point, the game is purposely forcing you to make an important choice about where you want to go and what you'll see. Getting players to the lobby is the most important thing, so the entire composition of this scene is leading you in that direction. It's a huge building with a bunch of flashing screens around it, perfect for grabbing your attention. If you do follow it up the stairs, these walls limit your vision to avoid the other buildings being too distracting, forcing you to focus on the lobby in front of you, and once you reach the top, this pathway is clearly leading you straight forward, pushing the other modes to the side for now. But if you choose instead to look around a bit, even slightly glancing over to ammonites will immediately lead you down the shopping district. And just like that, any new player has immediately found the most important areas of the game on their own. Speaking of your journey from spawning into the lobby, this distance looks so much bigger in Splatoon 3, but when you put them side by side, it actually takes roughly the same amount of time to walk as it did in Splatoon 2. Splatsville feels far bigger and grander, but it's clearly designed to not waste your time either. Getting from A to B is more interesting than before, but it's not less convenient. But not everything here necessarily has a purpose, at least in terms of game design, and that's kind of what I love about it. In your time playing Splatoon 3, you would never need to come back here, but this area just exists. If you'd like to explore and see what's here, you'll be rewarded with some cool surprises and interesting areas. And if not, that's cool too. Interestingly, every game's lobby tower has a cafe nearby, and this is continued in Splatoon 3. I don't know if this text just says cafe or if it's a specific brand, but you can see it's consistent throughout the games. Unfortunately though, after 7 years they still won't let us in.
Why are you locking your doors to the public?
On the topic of the cafe, I find it very interesting that it's right above where the Splatcast is filmed. In Splatoon 2, the cafe was close to the Splatcast, but in a completely separate building. I'm a huge fan of the menu layout on the chalkboard, by the way. It's very easy to understand because of the triangulation it uses in the way it presents information. The menu being outside the entrance is a great way to get people in the door as well. Man, I really do wish we could go up there. What? Little buddy, get down from there!
Murch kind of creeps me out, to be honest. He's a bit too tall and human looking now, and I honestly think Spike was way cooler, but there is an interesting detail here. Notice how all the Inklings have upgraded from the old xylophones to these new purple ones. Well, Murch hasn't. He's still glued to his classic phone from Splatoon 2, and over time he slapped some stickers on there as well.
Another cool little detail about Murch is the sticker design next to him. This sticker, which according to Hotlantis is named 3CHP, can really be seen all over the place. But interestingly, in Splatoon 2, the same sticker can be seen next to Murch as well. I thought that was a pretty cool detail.
Speaking of stickers, check out how the stickers on the support beam are more tightly packed towards the bottom, but become less frequent as the higher areas become harder to reach. It's something that I wouldn't have considered that makes the placement of them feel more realistic, and it makes you wonder how an Inkling managed to get all the way to the top here. So the hub area is big and alive and awesome, but honestly what we've been looking at so far is the most boring version of it. Every now and then there's an event which truly brings the world to life in a way we've never seen before in Splatoon, but first let's go inside for a minute. Speaking of Splatoon 3's hub being bigger and more distinct, check out this amazing lobby. Splatoon 3 has a huge area you can walk around, not just some kind of void with menus. This room continues the yellow, blue, and grey color scheme of the game, like these support beams and these dummies. In fact, the grey look with yellow accents just looks really cool and sleek overall. Did you notice the big monitor here is actually a gigantic curved switch? It's a little hard to notice at first due to the lack of Joy-Cons, but you can see here where the Joy-Cons are designed to attach, and the USB-C adapter at the bottom here. When you start looking, there's actually quite a lot of details, down to little notches in the screen and even the screw holes here at the bottom. You can see on all of these displays they've added a pixelation effect to prevent them seeming too clean and unrealistic. And in other examples throughout the game you can see the LED lights used in the monitors. Kinda funny how sometimes you need to make something look worse in order to make it look better.
One more thing I want to add about the TV on the lobby is that the advertisements are based off of the printed ads posted by the Squid Research Lab before the game launch on Twitter. For example, this ad for Takoroka is based off of the brand reveal shown on Twitter. It's essentially the same ad, but given some motion, they were able to translate static images into a dynamic advertisement in-game. There's also another ad that does something similar. It seems to be a collab with another brand, but the printed version of it can be seen in-game, in the Eeltil Alley stage. I love how connected all these designs are. It really is what makes this game so special to me.
Like the world outside, Nintendo could have just given us this space as is, but they made a point of making it all feel big. Like there's so much more to explore here than what we can access. There's a huge amount of space to the room around us, and I love the big windows bringing in some light, which also serve to help with the atmosphere when we experience the Splatlands at different times of day. The apartments everyone seems to want are smaller than we expected, but to be fair, I really like this solution. In theory, it adds the customizable space everyone wanted, without taking up too big of an area or having unnecessary load times. Your lobby will be constantly decorated with different lockers, which I think is a lot of fun. Much like you see in a game like Animal Crossing, giving players the freedom to customize their own space is going to lead to an infinite amount of fun ideas that the community will come up with. Check out the animation on the locker door as well. I really like it. Also, remember that map outside? The information on it is actually accurate to the layout of the lobby, with the main area, upstairs area, and the locker room. I'd go as far as to say the interior areas are one of the biggest upgrades here from Splatoon 2. The shoal is no longer just a menu, but a fun arcade-style building, complete with the kind of hideous crusty carpet you'd expect from somewhere like this. The details are so unnecessary but so much fun. Check out the balloons here, some of which have flown up and are now permanently stuck in the ceiling. The Grizzco building is cluttered and uncomfortable. A single dim light is used to illuminate the room, which also leads you towards the most important interactable objects. I mentioned the CCTV before, but here you can see Mr. Grizz is actually keeping an eye on the entire plaza, though I checked to see if there were actually cameras in these locations and I couldn't find them, so that's unfortunate. So this stuff is all pretty cool, but what truly makes the Splatoon 3 hub stand out is that it's dynamic. Every so often the sun will come down and we'll be treated to a look at what this town looks like when it truly comes to life. The game starts to build hype by slowly showing the early signs of construction, and a small tent is set up to vote for our team, but for now everything's relatively normal. Then the sun starts to come down, allowing us to see all of Splatsville in a completely different light, literally, and lets us experience Splatoon in a way we never have before. It's honestly pretty beautiful, but most importantly the sunset is setting the stage and building hype for what goes down the following day. On the night of the Splatfest, you can feel the excitement in the air. The usually relatively quiet and chilled out hub area is injected with energy. Even Merch finally puts down his phone and starts getting into it. Taking sunlight out of the equation allows the colors around you to really pop. Everything feels like it's glowing now, which just looks incredible. I don't know what it is about floating balls of light, but they're just so good at adding to the mood. I mentioned earlier that I love how this hub has important areas that are easy to access, and side alleys that are completely optional if you feel like exploring. And this is where those areas really come into their own. Many of the seemingly pointless buildings around here open up and start selling traditional Japanese-style festival food. Everyone's having so much fun, and the working jellyfish are supporting the team of their choice with the Splatfest tea. They really nailed the vibe of a slightly quieter street just around the corner from where all of the action is going down. To a lot of people, a loud festival might seem like a lot of fun, but for me, I don't think you can beat being away from the action and seeing it all go down from a distance. The secluded spot up here where you can just kind of chill and watch the drone display is probably my favorite. And speaking of which, I do really think drones will, and probably should, replace fireworks in the future, so it's cool to see Inklings using that technology. If you are there for the party, however, the main hub is where all of the Inklings are hanging out and dancing. Friar, Shiver, and Big Man will fly around on these things during the first half of the Splatfest, making good use of the huge map. But in the second half, they all come together right here to put on a show no Inkling could resist. And really, isn't that what Splatfests are all about? We get split into 3 different teams, but at the end of the day we're all here to come together and just have a good time playing Splatoon. Did you know that Salmon Run is so deeply detailed that even the employee handbook had purposeful mistakes in Splatoon 2, which have been improved in 3 to show Grizzco's integration into Inkling society? Learn about this and way more in Deku Gamer's deep dive into Salmon Run by going to the Splatoon 3 analysis playlist. If you want to improve your art for free, you can join the Learning to Draw Discord server, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. That's going to be it for now. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.